I'd like to call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Madigan?
Here.
Ms. Marlin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe?
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. First item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. We have October 13th, 2014, a special meeting, and October 20th, 2014.
I'll second.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Roberts. Any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to petitions and communications. Anybody who would like to address the Urbana City Council, we have little cards at the back of the room you can fill out and hand to our city clerk, Phyllis Clark. First is Thomas Bruno. Mr. Bruno, from the city of Champaign. If you like, you can give your address.
Yeah, I would like to. May I have a seat?
And you have
Seat?
5 minutes, if you like.
Thomas Bruno. I live at 1109 West Park in Champaign. I'm here tonight to talk about the building at 202 West Green Street in Urbana, the northwest corner of Race and Green. I also practice law at 301 West Green in Urbana, and also own the house at 303 West Green in Urbana. When I first got out of law school, I rented an office in 202 West Green for a couple of years. I know the building inside and out. It has fallen into such disrepair that it's now a danger to people around it. I was delighted, and I'm here to compliment the city on condemning the building on October 10th. So the building has now been condemned, and a deadline was given, as I understand it, by the city of Urbana to the property owners to repair or demolish by November 20th. It's now November 3rd. I don't think any of us can reasonably say we've seen any signs that repair work is likely to be completed by November 20th, but I could be surprised. But if it is not repaired and it remains a danger, I think we owe it to the public to reopen that sidewalk, to make it safe again by the library for sidewalks used by pedestrians. There's been a chain link fence around it, which I think negatively impacts not only my business, but others in the neighborhood. It's an eyesore, and now we know it's a dangerous eyesore. So when November 20th comes around, if it has not been repaired, then the city, I think, has options. And I suppose it would be possible for the city to step in and repair someone else's property, but I don't know that that's ever done. So assuming the property owners drop the ball and don't do anything in the next 17 days, I'm here to urge the city to promptly move into your next level of action. As sad as it may be that it has come to that, the building is not structurally safe. Bricks can fall and hurt people. The sidewalks have been closed for 2 years now. I would ask you to promptly move into the necessary actions of the city, making that building safe, either by demolishing it and putting a lien on the property, or just moving ahead with, without any further delay. So I thank you for your time. I'm just here to visit you tonight. Plus, I always like to see how the other half lives, but I'm here to visit you just as a neighboring property owner that would like to see that corner cleaned up and made safe again. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments. Any questions for Tom Bruno? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bishop King James and Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood do not wish to speak. However, they are still concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problem. Michael Kilcullen. Monsieur Kilcullen.
Good evening, Council. Michael Kilcullen. I'm on the Sister Cities Committee, and I have been the chair of the subcommittee for the Thionville, France project. And I wanted to thank you all on behalf of myself as well as the committee and the city that you have supported our project this summer. And we are very excited to announce that I'm leaving Thursday to go down to France, and everyone else is coming the following week. So November 15th and 16th have shaped up to be quite an event for the city of Thionville. They are hosting us at their expenses, and we have quite some programs, and there will be 9 of us total going there, including several counselors and some citizens, and our honored veteran Kermit Hardin, who is a resident here in Urbana. So I kind of wanted to give an update that everything is going very well. We are looking forward to being in France this month, and we will be signing the official proclamation documents about Sister City. And I want to thank you all for your support, because it's been great.
I have to clarify that our support is emotional.
That
Everyone
is true.
is paying their own way.
Yes. The residents are paying the travelers are paying their own expenses to and from Europe.
Okay. Carol?
I just want to wish you all a safe journey. I wish I could go. I know Dr. Evelyn Underwood is going, and I'm so excited
Yes.
she's going. So I hope you guys have a really safe trip and bring a lot of pictures back for us.
Okay, thank you.
Eric?
I'm hoping, and I'd be glad to know, whether there'll be some sort of commemoration of Jim Burgess's tank battalion, because he was there in Patton's Arby. He was about 100 kilometers away from Thionville on that day that Thionville was there, and this was a famous unit. It was, as we know, in the Second World War,
Okay.
the armed services were segregated.
Right.
This was considered the best African-American fighting unit in the entire Army, and books have been written about it. Jim Burgess, who was a leader of one of the platoon, who was a platoon leader, was right there. He's one of our own, and boy, he should be commemorated. And I'd be
Okay,
glad to.
I wasn't made aware
Yeah,
before,
I've
but
looked
I
it up.
will,
I've looked it up,
definitely.
and I'm going to bring a book about, and also a book about the unit. There was a tank battalion,
Good.
but also about Jim Burgess, because he was the first African-American elected county-wide. He was the state's attorney, and when I got elected to the county board, I think, which is a
Yeah.
long time ago. So yes, we are going to do that.
Great.
Okay.
I'm,
And-
I'm really glad to hear
Yeah.
that. That to me.
So
that's
these,
one
we're
of the
going to
most
have all the
important
connections that we can think of,
Right.
including the fact that Illinois is obviously a French word.
Yeah, exactly. Illinois.
Illinois. So I'm going to
yeah.
try to give a speech in fractured French, but
And I'll try to help you.
You will tell me where my mistakes are, and I will fix them first.
So, well, that was one thing I wanted to clarify. I totally forgot. I wasn't familiar with the name particularly, but I will try to look some things up. But if Ms. Pressing will be having some information, by all means, we definitely want to support. I did talk to the Urbana Free Library. They will be putting a book display out as well. And Dr. Underwood has already given, her and a friend of hers are donating a copy of a DVD about David Brown, who lives up in the Chicagoland area, who was also an African-American veteran who fought in D-Day, and they've made a DVD movie about it. So I just got the copy tonight that we'll take to the library tomorrow, but they will put it out on display when they put up the books.
Was he in the same unit that Jim Burgess was in?
Not sure.
Was
Jim Burgess?
The website, you have the website, and the French, he's got 2 medals, one of the highest medals from the French government, pictures with the French ambassador, the Chevalier
Okay.
Award. There's much. And he's 94, still alive, and in up the Chicago area. Bolingbrook, is it?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
got all the
Yeah,
information.
we're Burgess and Mr. Brown
I'm
in the
not
same.
sure, he's still alive. We might.
Well, we're not sure yet, but we'll have to look into that.
Okay.
But we are learning.
Well, this is just the beginning of the
Yeah.
relationship, so we'll
That's true.
find more things in
and
common.
And I did find also that the Tuskegee Airmen actually had the origin start was at Chanute during the first 3 months of training before they moved it down to Alabama. So I thought that was a connection I learned about this fall. But not being from Illinois, I'm still learning about your history. But it has been fascinating, and we will bring these to Urbana's attention as well as Teonville's during the course of our project.
Dennis?
And I learned this morning that the Chanute Air Museum will be donating a book about the training facility that was in Rantoul and operating and training so many of the Air Force pilots as part of the packet that we can bring to Thionville on our visit.
Great.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you when I get back.
Okay. Gina Pagliuso.
Good evening. My name's Gina Peluso, and I live at 806 South Vine in the lovely town of Urbana. Thanks for your time this evening. I just wanted to make a couple comments very briefly. One is I noticed that we're going to be doing an economic development report this evening, but I looked back on the last 3 or 4 months and haven't seen anything recently about what's going on with the Landmark Hotel. So I was just wondering if maybe we could add that to part of the presentation if we know what's been happening, what's been going on. I know that there were a couple of newspaper articles late in the summer, that kind of went back and forth a couple of weeks in a row. So I just thought maybe if we could get an update on what's going on with that, that'd be great. And then I wanted to ask a question about what's going on with the burnt buildings on Learman and Washington. I sent an email to my council person in May and got a response rather quickly that it would be about 2 months before everything was taken care of. So June, July, and it's November. And I drove by. I have a friend that lives on Washington Street out by Peffer Road. So I go by there fairly regularly, but I was blown away when I drove by the other day. And again, we still have these burnt hulks of buildings. If I lived across the street from that, I'd be down here every day asking what the heck is going on. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention too and see if we can get some answers on what's happening there. And maybe we could get Mr. Dillard to tear that down as part of our deal up on North Cunningham.
Well, I will tell you that sometimes people think that the city can do things instantly and that we're dragging our feet. This is a question of having to get a permit from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which I understand has either been given or is imminent. So we do it as quickly as we can. The city does not delay these things, but we have to get approval from other layers, and we have to go through a long process of trying to get control of the property. So we were able to work with Deutsche Bank to get that property, and then we have another method for getting another property that's on the agenda for tonight. But these are problem properties, and we aren't just waiting around. We are doing it as fast as we can.
I didn't think that we were waiting around, and I certainly didn't mean to give that impression, but I know that we as a city got the properties, and then we as a city decided to use them as a firefighting training exercise. And when I sent the email in May, I was told that we were still going through the request for proposal on the demolition of those buildings. So I guess I don't understand why we put the cart before the horse, and we didn't get that information before we burnt those buildings.
Dennis?
Yeah. So we actually went ahead and had fire training on several of the buildings, and they were taken down. And the city had already received approval from the EPA to proceed, but there was an agency, the Housing Authority, had not. They didn't realize they had to, so everything had to stop. And now we are going through the process of having an affiliate agency get the appropriate certification to proceed. There's really not, I think it's like more like a technicality than a real issue, but I haven't heard that we're ready at this point to proceed because that certification perhaps hadn't been completed, and probably the Community Development Department can upgrade your information on that.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished business, I don't believe we have any that we're going to deal with tonight. Reports of standing committees, the Committee of the Whole.
All righty. On behalf of Committee of the Whole, I move ordinance number 2014-10-100, an ordinance amending Schedule F of Section 23-83 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code designating one-way streets and alleys, Oregon Street between Cedar Street and Birch Street. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Committee also moves resolution number 2014-10-056R, a resolution authorizing the entry into and execution of an agreement between the City of Urbana, Illinois, and the Community Foundation of East Central Illinois Public Arts Commission, and I so move.
I'll second.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
We also move ordinance number 2014-10-101, an ordinance approving a redevelopment agreement, second amended and restated with Cake Design Development LLC, 206-208-210 West Main Street, and I so move.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Committee final ordinance is number 2014-10-102, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance fiscal 2014-15, redevelopment agreement second amended and restated Cake Design Development LLC. And I so move.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes.
That's all from committee.
Okay, that motion carries. Reports of special committees. Reports of officers. Libby Tyler, Community Development Director.
Some questions earlier on a few properties that can try to give an update on the 202 West Green. That is something that we have the deadline and looking to see either repair or demolition. Failing that, we will need to likely proceed with legal action. It is not in a situation where the city can just go in and demolish and then lien. It's not of that condition, and it's also a property that is owned and taxes are being paid. So we do have some legal options that we can pursue. We will not be able to reopen the sidewalk until the building is repaired. However, it's not safe, and we'll be looking at some improved barricades, but it is unfortunate that it's such an inconvenience to the public and the location, and we will do all we can to obtain action on that property. Second question on Urbana Landmark Hotel. We continue to work very closely with the owner in achieving 100% opening of the property. Some remedies have been achieved recently, and we are looking to see if there are 60 more rooms that will be available that the owner is working on. And that will be pretty close to all rooms being open at that point, as well as the convention center, the conference rooms. So that's the work that's underway right now. Third, on the Learman, Washington, yes, it was the environmental review from National HUD that was necessary in order to proceed in the future with redevelopment of the site and a change of their policies that had caused us to halt the demolition. But we are very close to getting that clearance. We know that it's gone through our Chicago office. They came down, they documented, conducted a site visit, and they've sent on their recommendation to Washington, D.C. The federal office is aware of this as well, and we hope that we will have our clearance in the next few weeks. Ms. Peluso said, well, gee, maybe Mr. Dillard could come and demolish it, and he is. He got started, and he's anxious to get back and complete the job, and we hope we'll be able to get that done in short order. So, any other questions on these properties or other properties?
Diane?
So when are the 60 additional rooms at the hotel expected to open?
We will see. Next few weeks, we'll go in and do a pre-inspection, so we'll let you know.
Well, we don't have a expected date for that?
Pardon me?
He hasn't given us a date?
The
for
next
that?
few weeks, we'll do an inspection. I don't have the day, but it's very imminent. And if they're not ready to be open, they won't be open, but we will do a pre-inspection.
Okay.
Who's first here?
Michael.
Mike.
So, following up on Diane's question, so let's say the 60 rooms aren't able to pass inspection. What next?
I think we're just in the same situation we're now. We're attempting to achieve compliance with our development agreements. That's what we're working on.
So what's the next crucial deadline with regard to this whole project?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Clearly, I mean, he has, the contract calls for him to have,
Yeah, there's a maturing of the promissory note the end of December.
so
That's
the
an
calendar
upcoming date.
year.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And
And there
so-
was a date that has now gone by, which was 2 years ago.
Right.
So we do have some compliance that we're working on.
So beyond the 60 rooms, what else is required of him
Okay.
by the end of the calendar year?
Well, the opening was really to have been 2 years ago, then 2 years operating since. So there's a couple different deadlines. And our definition of the project being complete was all the rooms, convention center, and restaurant. So there's still, work to be done to be fully operating, up and running for 2 years. That's the goal.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand this. The 60 rooms, we hope are imminent and that he passes that. And then by the end of the calendar year, he has to have what additional? That's not what I'm clear about.
Okay, I think it would help to go back and look in the agreement, and you'll see that our requirements called for the hotel to be up and running by a certain date in 2012. And then after 2 years of continuous operation, there was another deadline for the redevelopment incentives. And then finally, we have a promissory note that matures on a certain date. So those are the 3 timelines.
Okay.
Dennis?
And what was the result of the recent reinspection by the fire department?
Cleared.
So he's completely cleared as far as meeting the fire requirements and safety
right.
requirements for that.
That's right.
Eric?
It probably never occurred to us, and maybe it's not even possible to put in the contractual agreement anything about the quality of the hotel service. But the reviews this year are uniformly terrible. You know, the ones that customers post online. I think the most vivid one was Faulty Towers meets the Bates Motel. And so is there any way that we can encourage an improvement of the management? I really appreciate that there's an effort to bring the physical facility into compliance, but there doesn't seem to be any, there doesn't seem to be progress, at least as far as, as far as I can see, on the quality of the experience of people who might stay there.
Certainly had those discussions, and I have to apologize. I was merely trying to respond to the inquiry by the public. I don't have a full report. I don't have my file with the agreements, and we have not been sitting by. We have had many, many discussions on all of these topics with our attorneys, with our special counsel, with the management. It's ongoing, and I'm sure we'll be able to provide a more complete report.
Mike?
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. The questions came up, and we're all curious. So I guess it might be nice to put on a future agenda an update, a thorough update for the council. I think it would benefit everyone. And seriously, not trying to put anyone on the spot here. It's just, I think we felt like the opportunity presented itself, and we start asking questions. But it's totally fair of you to say that was not something that was that you were prepared to discuss tonight. But if we could put that on a very near future agenda, that would be great.
Diane?
I would just add a request based on the questions I've gotten from the public. The property is for sale. At least it was a few weeks ago. I assume it's still on the market. And the question people are asking is what happens to the public investment in the property when and hopefully if it sells.
We
So-
have our interests protected.
Well,
Okay.
I think it would be good to remind the public, since it's been several years since we all signed that agreement and discussed that agreement. So that would be something to, whatever information can be shared, it's certainly on the public's mind.
Okay. Any other reports of officers? Economic Development Director.
Brandon Boyes,
Brandon Boyes.
Yeah, Economic Development Manager.
Manager, sorry.
I'm going to run over the highlights for the October Economic Development Activities Report. We had an opening for Dancing Dog Eatery and Juicery at 126 West Main. That was a complete new commercial kitchen build-out. It was most recently Prime Light Studio, and before that I believe it was Furniture Lounge. Very nice restaurant, very full menu. No animal products whatsoever. It's completely vegan. But I encourage you to go check it out because I think you'll be surprised at the diversity of vegan cuisine, and it's certainly a unique attraction in our downtown. We held a ribbon cutting and issued business grants to a new design business in CoLab called Creative Health, which designs nutrition and food labeling and other marketing materials with a bend towards focusing on nutrition. And you may also have seen this business at the Market at the Square on Saturdays. We've issued sales tax exemption certificates for Applied Pavement Technology for their expansion of their corporate headquarters above Crane Alley, which is going to bring new employees to downtown Urbana. And next, across Crane Alley, in the space that was most recently occupied by the Urbana Butcher Shop, Lord and Lacey Barbecue is working on being open. We're hoping they'll be open before the end of the year. They received a $2,000 business development grant from us as they complete their renovations. They've been moving in their equipment, and I'm sure they're proceeding with their health certification as well. Lastly, downtown, the Curbana pilot program is wrapping up for the season, and you should be seeing those removed for the winter. And then we'll be doing some program evaluation and deciding what the future course for the Curbana's program will be. On University Avenue, another sales tax exemption certificate was issued, and a building permit for the western half of the strip at Gateway Shops at 5 Points. So that's back behind the Jimmy John's. And of course, we're still hoping to see the last outlot development there next to the current Jimmy John's and the Pancheros. It's likely we'll see that proposals for that within the next year. That moving forward, but in the meantime, Ivan Richardson's moving forward now with building of the rest of that strip mall. So that development is really turning out to be quite a success, and it was a long time coming with the relocation of the O'Brien Auto Mall and we've really managed to, this is a very successful transformation of that intersection. There's a new AT&T store that's under renovation out at the Pines. Up on North Lincoln Avenue, the Holiday Inn is or the former Holiday Inn, which has a generic branding at the moment, but it's very near receiving. It's completing the updates to become a Wyndham Garden Inn. So it'll have a new national brand very soon. And you may have also noticed that the Super 8 across the street is now a Knights Inn, so they switched branding as well. On the marketing front, staff have attended meetings for the IHSA Boys State Basketball Bid Committee. That's a community-wide effort that's trying to attract and be successful in receiving the bid for the state basketball tournament to return to the State Farm Center and the community as a whole. The market is over as of November 1st. Again, strong attendance through the end of the year. It was a cold day this past Saturday, so it'll be interesting to see what those numbers come out as. Our market director, who's also she's the vice president now of the Illinois Farmers Market Association board, hosted a meeting of that board. It's a statewide board, and she held it here at the farm of one of our market vendors, Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery. For the public arts program, the big announcement is that our public arts coordinator, Lisa Hatchadorian, has accepted a new position. She will be the new executive director of the Fort Collins Museum of Art in Colorado. We appreciate all the service that Lisa's shown to us in her time in the position, and we wish her well in her new role. The installation for sculptures has been underway. You may have noticed Maelstrom 2 at the corner of Philo and Florida Avenue. That's in front of the Sprint store. And Stranger Reduction Zone by Timothy Flood was installed next to the Urbana Free Library. This would be right near the drive-through for the book drop-off and the southern entrance. And it looks kind of like a pedestrian crossing signal. You can push the button, and it says hello in several different languages and lights up with a smiley face. So a real nice interactive piece. And on Wednesday, another piece will be going up across roughly from Horatius Moroleone on Philo Road. There's a pocket park there that hasn't seen necessarily a lot of use. It's sort of on the edge of things. But now there'll be a new reason to linger and enjoy that space with the installation of Twista 2s. In the hallway here, the Urbana Artist of the Corridor will have a new artist tomorrow. So there's no art out there at the moment as we prepare for a new artist, Carol Dis Farnham. An example of her watercolors was in the report. Staff is also working on hiring a new public arts intern, and hopefully we'll have a person in that position later this week. The community development staff will be hosting the November Business and Development Luncheon on Tuesday, November 18th. That'll be at the Civic Center at 1:30 p.m. City staff will be presenting an Urbana Business Year in Review. So we hope to have a lot of good information there, kind of recapping what's happened in about a year's time in Urbana. And one note on the enterprise zone, the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District voted, I believe unanimously, to support the enterprise zone with property tax abatements. So I think that is the second taxing partner who has fully come on board, and of course we'll keep reaching out with all the others. Any questions?
Eric has a question.
Well, it's a comment. I've already received favorable comment about the sculpture at the library.
Good.
So that
It's a lot of fun.
As far as I can tell, that's a hit.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other reports of officers? Bill Gray.
Wanted to give a quick update and a heads up on the Tiger grants that the Champaign-Urbana University, City of Champaign, and us have received. This Multimodal Corridor Enhancement Grant, or MCOR is the acronym, And behind the scenes, there's a lot of activity going on by staff of the respective agencies. Of most interest, though, for you is right now on November 24th, Monday, we plan to bring to you a draft intergovernmental agreement, four-party agreement. It will be somewhat like what you may be familiar with Olympian Drive. That was a multi-agency agreement, so various folks had roles in that responsibility. Right now, the City of Champaign will be the lead agency of the four-party agreement. So wanted to let you know that. Also, behind the scenes, we're putting together a notice of interest to be seeking to select a consultant and probably sub-consultants to ultimately work on this $35 million project. So there'll probably be a prime with some sub-consultants involved. We're using what's called a qualification-based selection process and going through that effort. So in the end of this week, next week, it will be out on the street, and then weeks after that, we'll receive proposals and go through that selection process. So a lot is going on. A third item is happening, and that is a federal highway agreement with the lead agency or the four agencies. So today we had a conference call, if you will. We have those calls once or twice a week, trying to work out the details of the federal agreement between the local agency and us. And IDOT will be the one managing the federal funds. So the Federal Highway Administration through IDOT, through us. So stay tuned for more, but this is a kind of a fast and furious project.
Okay, questions for Bill? Charlie.
Yeah, Bill, thanks. A real challenge, but you used the number 35 million. I thought this was more like in the 19 million. What's the other piece that I don't know about?
Sure. The grant is 15.7 million. The balance is the agency's participation, which is around $19 million. Our contribution over the next 5 years in our application was $2 million, which were CIP related, but we'll unveil how that all works in the weeks ahead.
Okay. And the follow-up to that is, I know you were concerned about the timetable. Are the feds going to let us spread it out the way we need to?
Sure. Since you asked, what's happening is the Office of the Secretary of Transportation is most interested in these monies being spent and obligated no later than June of 2016. An obligation means it has to be on a letting, an IDOT letting. Well, if you back up, that's not a lot of time to go through this type of a process. Certainly, we can't obligate all 35 million. So in a discussion with Federal Highway, they have agreed to front load the 15.7 million, 100% paying for construction costs for 3 of the 5 projects. So that's our task. The other 2 projects, there's 5 projects total. The other 2 projects would be after that obligation date. So our project of interest is Green Street between Lincoln and Wright. Then there is the Champaign project of Green Street between 4th and just east of Neal. And then there's the White Street project in Champaign between 2nd and Wright Street. Those are the first 3 projects of this downtown to downtown through campus multimodal high capacity project.
Okay, question from Carol Ammons.
I just want, you'll have all the bid documents and RFP, and you said qualifications RFQ, up on the website starting when?
The actual notice of interest, will probably be in a couple of weeks. So the City of Champaign is taking the lead. We may have a link to their site, but that's where it'll be posted. They will be managing the actual selection, even though the 4 agencies will be part of the decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, question from Diane.
Yes. I was thinking about this as I was writing down Green Street the other day, and several years ago we paid consultants to do our signage and wayfinding study, and there were lots of good ideas and suggestions in that report, and most of them we haven't been able to implement yet. So it strikes me as we rebuild Green Street from Race to Wright, that is a perfect opportunity to do as much as we possibly can to get, people pointed from Lincoln Avenue to head east down Green and end up in downtown Urbana. So what can we do to pull whatever we can out of that signage report, update that, and get good, creative, innovative, wayfaring items incorporated into this redesign. I was just overseas, and there were so many neat things they're doing with infrastructure in Amsterdam and Germany, and it would just be nice to really take advantage of this opportunity.
The study is still a good study, and it's, the study part is complete, as you know. I would say, to answer your question, we can certainly identify the signage. If you recall, it's really an overarching sign at Green Street east of Lincoln.
Well, we might
there was
wanna
4 arches, if you
Yeah,
will.
we might want to update our thinking on that,
Okay,
too. So.
but anyway, I'm just saying that was the plan.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, we could pull that out, see what signage would be applicable for Green Street, identify that cost in the study, or update the cost, and then try to decide how we would pay for it.
Or, yeah, it's at least as a starting point, yeah.
Any other reports of officers? Well, I would like to report that we are working on the tax levy with the idea of keeping the rate constant, which I think we need to do considering the situation that we've been put in. So we'll get that done on time. And any questions about that? I don't think anybody's going to disagree. So, all right, we'll move on to new business, and this deals all with the former Hanford Inn, problem property for a number of years that we've come to grips with. So the first is resolution number 2014-11-058R, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a judicial deed for certain real estate at 2408 North Cunningham Avenue. And Jim Simon, are you going to do that? Okay. It is Brandon Boyce.
I'm going to speak briefly about this item and the following 3 because they all function together. The former Hanford Inn at 2408 North Cunningham Avenue, it was condemned in 2010 by the city. A demolition order was issued in 2012. Yet this blighted property, which has become a significant safety nuisance and stands as an obstacle to redevelopment of this corridor, has remained a problem for the city that we have not been able to directly tackle. The property also has an absentee property owner. There's over $1.6 million in mortgage and tax liens on the property. And we were fortunate in being contacted by Mr. Kelly Dillard, who's here at the council meeting this evening, of Diggett of Champaign, who had an interest in the property and has the means and the experience to demolish this hazardous building. The actions before the council tonight would put in action a series of things. The first is the issuance of a judicial deed. This is how the city will actually obtain clean title to the property. This is not something that can be used in all instances, but because the property has been effectively abandoned and taxes have not been paid on it, this is an option the city is able to pursue that will remedy that situation and give the city the ability to then sell the property to Mr. Dillard in the form of a sale agreement, item number 2, and attached to that sale agreement is a demolition contract as well, which will require that the property be demolished as a condition of sale. The third item then is a redevelopment agreement with Mr. Dillard that will allow for a reimbursement of up to $300,000 for the demolition expenses. And that is $300,000. The News Gazette did not report that number correctly on the front page of this morning's paper. Item number 4 is a budget amendment for $60,000. That amount is added to the $250,000 that was already budgeted, for a total of $310,000 budgeted 10,000 of which is going to be used for legal expenses. We've actually spent 4,000 in legal expenses, roughly. So we'll have another 6 to make sure that we get through all the other hoops we may need to jump through to ensure that everything is taken care of and all of this proceeds as planned. Mr. Dillard has informed us that he would like to begin demolition as soon as possible, including moving forward with further securing the site. There are 23 acres of undeveloped property to the south that this demolition will most likely improve the likelihood of its redevelopment in addition to the Hanford property itself. So, you know, we earlier in the economic development update, we talked about the success of Gateway Shops at 5 Points. Across the street from the Hanford is where the O'Brien Auto Mall is now and is doing well. We need to remove this obstacle to see the continuation of our investment and the efforts of the TIF district to complete the redevelopment of North Cunningham. And I can take any questions you have.
Any questions for Brandon? Eric?
Maybe this is more perhaps question for the fire chief. Is this property suitable for fire training before it gets taken down, or is it just too much nasty stuff in there?
Okay. Is there a motion? Oh, another question. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for, first of all, thank you for the clarification about the city's outlay. I was confused as well. You read what you read, you read the documents. Thank you for clarifying that. I also want to commend the mayor. I want to commend you, Brandon, Libby, everybody else who's been involved in this. I think this is a great solution. I'm glad Mr. Dillard came forward as a businessman with a great solution for a problem in our community. This is an absolute example of what good can happen when business and government collaborate. So I think this will be a tremendous opportunity for the city of Urbana. This is should be a very prime property that opens up, as you mentioned, multiple 23 acres adjacent to it for a much larger developable parcel. That 23 acres has basically been landlocked in a way by this blighted property. So I'm very appreciative of everyone's efforts and very supportive of those efforts. I think this is a kind of government expenditure that is beneficial to the community as a whole and is a very wise expenditure.
Dennis?
Yeah. As an individual on the council whose ward extends up into North Cunningham above the expressway, I'd say that this is an opportune time for possible redevelopment in an area where a lot of potential exists for the city of Urbana. Urbana has only a few directions on the edge of town where it really has real potential for development at this point until further properties become available. And certainly North Cunningham is one of them. And I think we're going to see a lot of growth out there. Hopefully this will become a retail space rather than a nonprofit organizational space. That's not the kind of thing we're looking for. And so I support this, and I'm just going to make I'll make the motion that we accept Resolution 2014-11-058R, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a judicial deed for the certain real estate, 2408 North Cunningham Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, seconded by Smythe, I believe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons? Yes. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes, that motion carries. Next is ordinance number 2014-11-103, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain real estate, 2408 North Cunningham Avenue.
So moved.
Oh, yes.
Well, we got the second before we got the motion, I think.
This is pretty popular.
Okay, so you made the motion, Diane
I
made the
made the
motion,
motion.
and it was seconded by Charlie.
We want this property gone.
Yeah, we are eager to do this. Okay, any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing.
Yes, that motion carries. Next, ordinance number 2014-11-104, an ordinance approving a redevelopment agreement with Kelly Dillard for 2408 North Cunningham Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by
Dennis.
Ammons, I believe,
I'll
was
take
first.
Carol's.
So we'll take Dennis as the second then. Any discussion? Oh, Eric.
I just want to make one comment really to the public. By statute, property acquisitions are one of the things that can be discussed in closed session. So we're not mindlessly, passing this. It's not the first time we've considered it. We did, consider the pros and cons in closed session. So perfectly legally. So anyway, that's why we have such alacrity in jumping on it now.
It is very rare to have something go through the Urbana City Council without discussion. Thorough discussion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing.
Yes, that motion carries. Finally, we have ordinance number 2014-11-105, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance for fiscal 2014-15. And this is for a redevelopment agreement with Kelly Dillard for 2408 North Cunningham Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Ammons. Any discussion?
And if,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, and I'll add to Eric's comments that that when we looked at demolishing this building ourselves, our bids were in the 900 to over $1 million category. So there's a substantial savings here. Probably, hopefully, it's a wash in the long run in terms of the cost of the city. The real potential is in the redevelopment potential of this property and unlocking that entire area, which everybody's alluded to, and why Mr. Madigan is so adamantly supports this, as do the rest of us.
Anyone else? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing.
Yes. That motion carries. And there being no further business,
Thank
this
you.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.